Ark Beyond Ascension, Part 12. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey. So in today's journey, we are actually going to be headed to the Redwoods. I had done some farming there offline and off camera, and essentially I was able to go through and acquire all of the materials that I need to be able to go through and craft myself the wooden platform. Now the purpose of going to the Redwoods here is actually to gather the sap, and I figured having the platform would make that significantly easier. So that's why I went through and grinded that out, and without further ado, let's make our way over. I did a few basic chores around the base and bred up some more RGs, and then I set out and I was greeted with this very scenic sight. Little did I know that the beauty of this night here held a whole bunch of danger. As I had swooped down to the ground to try and regain my stam, I actually noticed that there was an alpha raptor, so of course I decided this was probably a prime opportunity to take him out, as if I landed any headshots and I was able to just keep enough stamina to actually do this fight, then I should not have too many issues with this guy whatsoever. But he was sitting there playing Ring Around the Rosie with me, and yeah, it was kind of a very, very long-winded fight, but eventually he just sat there and stood behind me so I could kick him in the face like a horse, and yeah, I disposed of his body. And then I saw something shiny, so you know, of course, I got distracted, and then I was immediately met with a whole bunch of disappointment. There was nothing but a whole lot of crap in here, outside of maybe the artifact pedestal, because that can get a little expensive, but for the time being, I really did not need any of that, but I just took it with, because I figured I wasn't going to throw it on the ground. I might as well just bring it with, and if I do make it back in time, and I'm not overburdened, then I'll just stock up on it in the event that I use it for a future build. And I finally had arrived at the Redwoods, and the very first thing that I noticed immediately was death and destruction. There was a whole bunch of Ceratosauruses sitting here picking on a baby Gigantoraptor, a lone little baby who could not defend itself, or at least there were so many of them that they ended up attacking the baby. I think the mom actually may have been around. I honestly don't remember. In the Redwoods, basically everything dies eventually, so I figured I would at least try and spare this baby for a little bit longer to give it a fighting chance. And I also had a massive vendetta against these Ceratosaurus, as they've caused me so much grief in this playthrough and on Carno Island. These things are literally everywhere. They are tanks, and unless you have something that can just deal like an incredible amount of damage, they are just a hassle. I'm telling you, I love them. They were so much fun to test out to use against the bosses, but like fighting them in the wild and finding them when you're on a smaller mount, they are 10 times more annoying than a Carno. And the fact that they have the healing factor and the debuff factor, these things are just insane. So that kind of makes me scared for what we'll experience in the ocean when we go through and find the Siphaectinus. But for now, I just got to deal with these guys since they're on land. And with the RG, fortunately, even though they can take a bit of a time, especially when they're in gangs like this, because they do have the mate boost, and they like to run circles. I don't know what he's doing. You think he's trying to get to the turtle around me. But yeah, I do eventually go through and kill these guys, and it doesn't take too much effort. But yeah, they're still super strong, and they can be a bit annoying at times. I immediately started patrolling the river, going through and looking for a location for me to set up my platform base, so I could go through and get pretty quick, easy access to the sap. And I got distracted. Look at how many PTs are here. I struggled to find one early game to the point of where I didn't even tame one outside of the 95 one who got glitched and got stuck, so I just gave up on taming one and went with the Pelagornis. But here, there is literally like 50 of them just hanging out. I have no idea what happened or why there were so many, but yeah, it definitely made my game lag, so I didn't appreciate that. But I did go through and find a nice little tree. I decided I was going to set my platform up. It had a pretty good view of the river, and I could basically go through and scope out some possible tames up here as well. I had a good view of the Redwoods, and I also saw a Thyla on the backside here, but unfortunately he was only level 20. Thankfully, he did not see me as dinner. But yeah, I definitely did not want him to stick around because I did not know if he could attack me on this platform, but I was not going to risk it. So I basically just pulled out my crossbow and dropped him down to the floor, and I was going to let the rest of the creatures deal with him, or he could just eat them instead. I just did not want to be kitty food today. I then went through and got all of my different sap collectors placed down. Essentially, I can go through and start harvesting the saps. I could actually use this to make the superior kibble, as I was going to need the superior kibble to be able to tame a mammoth, a doedic, and the megatherium, all three of which I did want to go through and acquire for this playthrough. But I honestly had no idea how long it takes sap, because I haven't used these things in forever, because I typically play with a little bit higher boost rates, as I didn't have so much time to play before, but now I'm fully dedicating all my time, so I'm only playing on the 1.5 rate, so kibble is 100% needed. As we saw previously, when I did go through and essentially try to tame some of the earlier tames without using kibble, it was just a nightmare. But yeah, I saw a level 140 Rex, that was pretty cool, but then I noticed there was an Alpha Carno on the beach who was right next to him, who would certainly be causing some problems if I wanted to go through and try and tame this guy. And I felt like being a Rex, I should be able to tame him without too many issues, even if I don't have kibble, as a lot of the carnivores with prime meat or mutton, I tend to be able to at least get a decent level, and I'd rather have a level 140 Rex even if I do lose a couple percentage points of effectiveness, then no wrecks. So I did want to go through and get this guy regardless, but first and foremost, I had to go through and take care of this Alpha Carno, and the very last thing I wanted was for these guys to team up, because the Carno can't do all that much. They are annoying for sure. They are definitely my least favorite Alpha to fight on an RG, but if he boosts the Rex stat, then the Rex is just going to tear me apart, and I will not stand a chance. Thankfully, for whatever reason, the Rex just walked away. He had like zero interest in me whatsoever. So I was actually able to take out the Alpha Carno without too many issues, since it was a lower level and he had no extra help. So yeah, he fell down and I got some new loot. And I was able to go through and actually start focusing on this Rex. And then when I went through and I pulled up right next to the Rex, I figured I could get a couple of shots off on him since he was going through and eating a corpse. Figuring out just to get a couple of cheap shots in before things became a bit hectic. And the strangest, weirdest thing happened. I don't know why, but he just continued to eat the corpse even after it was entirely gone. He just got stuck in an animation. So I was able to just go through and load arrow after arrow into him. But as you can see, I keep checking behind me because I was absolutely terrified that something was going to come out of the water or just jump me, because it's the Redwoods. And basically everything here wants to kill you. So I figured eventually it was going to happen. And the moment I let my guard down would be the moment I died. And I still haven't died, and I had no intention to. So yeah, I was playing pretty cautious, pretty sporadic. And then I got nudged. And I knew something hit me, but I didn't know what. And it was this little thief. He had stole the 2 parachutes that I've had on my hotbar for like the last 10 days in game. And I wanted those back just in case I would need them one day. So I went through and I killed him and got my stuff back. And then the taming continued. Alright, sometime later, after we accidentally knocked out that PT, this guy started torpor running, and he was immediately being chased by a bear. I was laughing so hard at that PT in the moment when it happened, but yeah, I didn't even mean to do it. He was just trying to be our friend, and at this point we no longer want him. But I was essentially throwing him through and just trying to, I guess, push the Rex a certain direction. I was hoping he would look at me and walk the opposite direction. I just want to try and get him somewhere that's not directly in the Redwoods, but also don't want him like too far into the forest or in the river. That's like literally the worst spot that he could be. So I basically would go through and just followed him on my RG and took whatever shots I could whenever I could, hoping I basically could get him to just knock out. I thought this was actually a pretty good place right where he was located. But unfortunately, he had other ideas, and he must have heard me thinking that, because he immediately spun around and went back to the river. And yeah, I had to go through and proceed and keep up this chase until I actually got him to fall over, which literally was like in the worst spot possible. I don't think there could have been a more worse spot than right here where he falls over. Now, fortunately, I was accidentally prepared for this tame, as I actually still had my wooden spike traps on me from earlier when I was on Carno Island. So I was able to go through and set those up to try and protect him, but I was like insanely worried. I knew like there's got to be something bad that's going to happen to me or to him, because we're in the Redwoods. Half his body is hanging on the river. I was honestly surprised that piranhas didn't immediately swarm to his body. I was expecting it, and it did not happen. But trying to get these traps around him was just a royal pain, and he's huge. I eventually get them all down, but basically I was only able to go through and cover every part of him that was actually on land. So his tail and basically every part of his body that was in the water was still exposed. But I was hoping I could just nullify the majority of the threats from random creatures coming down. And literally within seconds of me finishing and placing the last trap, I mean within seconds, here came a Carno strolling on around the river, just looking to cause a whole bunch of trouble. Now, fortunately, it was just him, and there was no issues, and at least I thought it was. And then there was another fight that literally took place like within seconds of where I was, and I got so antsy that I immediately jumped off my RG. The water knocked me off. I tried to get over there fast enough, and yeah, I just screwed up. I was like panicking, trying to make this whole thing happen, and it was a fiasco. Fortunately, somehow they had managed to miss the Rex. Like, they didn't, during that fight, they didn't damage him, which was great. But I figured I need to go through and eat his corpse, because the very last thing I want to do is to possibly aggro piranhas or other creatures over to that corpse, and then possibly they would aggro on the Rex. And I did not want that, so I literally just sat there and I flew above the Rex, basically just guarding it and watching it, and realized there was going to be no, let me come back to this guy later, and then he'll be okay to tame. I was going to have to literally guard him every single second for every moment, and then the next terrible thing happened. There were some Dimorphodons who got stuck on my trap, so they started to attack it. So I had to go through and have to deal with them. But then the moment I hit one of them, there was just this massive swarm. I swear there's always like at least 6, if not more of them. So they immediately pursued me, and of course Dimorphodons hit the player and not the creature. So I immediately ended up breaking some of my armor, which meant I was going to be more susceptible to damage in the future. Now, fortunately, I was able to go through and fly away and then fly back and attack them. By doing that, I was actually able to go through and dispatch all of them without any issue. And, I was able to still survive, but it did not make it a pleasant experience. Literally, this guy had been on the ground knocked out with traps around him for less than like 60 seconds. And we got attacked by 3 different packs of creatures. I was not having it. So I went through and I went over to go check to see what his actual tracker said, and he had actually taken 1 hit or a small percentage of damage. He was at like 94% taming effectiveness, but I realized at this point I had already committed to doing this, so I wanted to go through and continue this, so I figured I was going to sit right next to him and try and make this happen, and even though it was 94%, I was still going to take it. And then a raptor ended up swinging by, trying to say hi to his buddy here and trying to take a bite out of the Rex. And I had to go through and get rid of him, and then there's one on the other side. It was just a non-stop legion of creatures. It was awful. I don't remember the last time I've tamed on the Redwoods, and this is exactly why. This is why. The Redwoods is not a fun place. It is not nice. So there I was again, flying in above the water, hoping I could go through and actually stop anything from getting to this guy. And, basically literally just doing a 360 panoramic view. I was like, okay, where is there creatures? What do I have to kill? Anything that comes within a certain distance? I put out a restraining order on all wild creatures. Nobody was allowed to go near this Rex, and if they even looked at him the wrong way, like this Dimorphodon, then I was going to go through and kill them. I really wanted this guy because this would be huge and monumental for my meat concerns, any hide problems I might have in the future, and absolute worst case if I didn't use him for a boss, he still makes for a pretty great tank, and he's still pretty great for defending bases, so I figured it'd be nice to have this guy, but the game was not playing nice. And then, as soon as I had gone through and repaired my armor, I saw some small damage numbers, which meant I knew something had either ran into or was attacking my actual little wooded spikes, and there were a bunch of Trudons, which really concerned me because usually they travel in packs, and these guys are super fast. I was able to go through and dispatch the other ones, but then there were some on this side, and I accidentally attacked them and somehow flew over them directly into the Rex. So I ended up attacking my Rex, but at the time I was not sure if I had, but I had a really strong feeling that this Rex was not meant to be, and I went and looked over at his taming effectiveness, and it had dropped down to 70%. I was pissed. I was so mad. I was just like, this is dumb. I don't like this. I don't want this. I'm done. So I went and I picked up my spike traps, and we abandoned this guy. I could have killed him. I thought about killing him, but at this point, he made me suffer. He put me through all of this 3 minutes of just panic and terrible suffering. So I figured I was going to leave him, and whatever in the wild wanted to eat him could actually go through and eat him. I then went through and returned to my wooden platform, trying to figure out what it is that I should do next, and figured I would check on the actual sap production so far. And, yeah, it was slow. It was like molasses, and I did not realize how slow this was, so I needed something else to do to kill time since I was here, because I didn't have to come back for this. And then I realized I had 4 or 5 different treasure maps. So I went through, and I've actually never used the treasure maps on the island before. I just messed around with them when I was on Scorched Earth. And then I realized you could actually activate all of them all at once, which I also did not know, so that was pretty cool too. And I also find out later, too, you can also hold the treasure maps on your actual hotbar, so you don't even have to go into your inventory to do it, which is a little bit safer, especially in areas like the Redwoods. But essentially, I lined them all up, and I started going through one by one and picking them all up and hoping that nothing killed me. And I'm not going to lie to you, I just did this to kill time. I had absolutely no idea just how insane the loot quality was on these treasure chests compared to the drops. I mean, a 250% crossbow, and the fact that I found some ghillie armor that was well over 100%, 2 different pieces, I was just amazed, and yeah, I was totally worth my time. I would rather do this than fail taming a 140 Rex. Now, when I finished up all of the treasure chests, I went to go make my way back to the platform to see if basically I had gotten any more sap, and then I stumbled upon another Alpha Rex, and I debated whether or not I could kill it, and I knew I could kill it. It was just a matter of how much time I wanted to put into it. But yeah, these guys are terrifying. But I felt like we'd be able to go through and handle it, and I didn't see anything that was actually going to get in my way. And then another Rex came out. And I figured I need to go through and kill him too, because if I didn't kill him, then we were going to have some serious problems taking out the Alpha. And the Alpha did not like that whatsoever. He refused to let me kill this other guy, and he had the Alpha boost. I was doing significantly less damage than what I typically would. And needless to say, I had to walk away because they really, really hurt. So I proceeded to go through and fire arrows at it from up above, thinking that I'd go through and at least be able to put a dent in it, or possibly kill the non-Alpha Rex. But no matter how many arrows I shot, it did not seem to have an impact because I continued to go through and just rampage through basically the entire bottom forest area there and killed everything in sight, which meant they were also healing as well. So eventually it just felt like I was wasting my arrows and the durability on this super new beefed up crossbow. But eventually, once they were no longer in sight, I proceeded to go down to see what I could find, and weirdly enough, the non-Alpha Rex had disappeared. So I saw this as a prime opportunity to go through and begin attacking the Alpha Rex, and hopefully I could just get him stuck in that circle animation to where he can never hit me. And sure enough, he did. He got stuck, and I was able to go through and attack him just in his butt without him doing anything. Cue the battle music. And without any interactions from anybody else or anybody interfering, we emerged victorious. It was a pretty good fight with no real risk to us whatsoever. But unfortunately, being an Alpha Rex, he gave us a whole lot of crap. We literally just got the Alpha Trophy, I believe the saddle, and of course another head trophy, so we'll definitely have to go through and decorate the base in the near future. Then I did go through and return back to my sap, and I realized I had a decent amount, so I went through and I collected all of the sap as I planned to go through and start making my way back to my base. Now, I did decide, since I was already on the way back, and the volcano was kind of on the way back to the house, that I would go through and stop here and try and load up on some metal and some obsidian, as those are both resources I knew I could use plenty of, and there was no real reason not to grab it since it was going to be on the way, and I had plenty of extra room on the RG to be able to go through and accommodate that load. But then I saw that there was both a giga and a carcha, and they were both low level, hanging out down in the lava, and suddenly I had an idea. I knew that I was going to go through and need a giga heart to go through and attempt the Alpha Overseer. And for those of you that don't know, the lava kills the gigas and the carchas, so I decided I was going to go through and cheese this guy. So essentially I got him to walk up over into the lava, and once he was in the lava, the carcha unfortunately immediately got burnt to a crisp, because if you kill them and you leave their body in the lava will actually go through and destroy their corpse. But I was able to go through and eventually bait the giga over to the lava, had him take enough damage from the actual fire and lava itself, and then his body flew up into the air and landed on a nice little cliff, allowing me to go through and fly over to him and grab me a nice giga heart. Now, I probably will go through and kill a couple of these guys later, because I do have the intention to go through and tame one of them if I could find a decent level, because I actually want to be able to bring them over to Scorched Earth when we do that part of the challenge. But I really don't see too much of a point for them here on the island. But yeah, if I could find a decent one, I definitely do want to go through and tame it. I do know there's 2 level 20 carchas in the snow biome. But yeah, for the time being, I did just go through and kill these guys using the lava trick, as I don't have any other means to actually kill them at this point in time. Then I went through and I returned back home, did a whole bunch of organizing, realizing I actually also had some prime meat jerky cooked up, which meant I now officially had everything to be able to go through and officially start getting my very first piece of superior kibble. I was actually able to go through and craft a couple of them, and yeah, I was looking to be in a pretty good position. Alright guys, well I think that's about it for today's episode. If you did enjoy today's video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already.